I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Vietnam Veterans News Podcast. News of interest about Vietnam veterans from a Vietnam veteran. Now here's your host, Mac Payne.
This is Mac Payne here with episode 1687 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. News about the Vietnam War and the brave veterans who served there, as told to you by yours truly, a Vietnam veteran. In this episode, I'm going to share with you a love story. That's right, a love story that came out of all that war going on in Vietnam. People still had time to get together and do some heing and sheing, as people are wont to do. This story I'm going to share with you comes out of Boston, Massachusetts. It appeared on WBUR radio. The story was titled, "She Spent 44 Years Looking for Her Daughter, Then a Stranger Stepped In." This story was provided by Yasmin Amer of WBUR radio, right there in Boston. I'm going to share this story with you because, number one, it's heartwarming. The mother and the daughter did get back together. Number two, it tells you about some of the terrible things that went on in the Vietnam War that affected so many lives. Number three, it tells you about the treachery of communism and why we should avoid it. I don't care what you call it. Communism, socialism, democratic socialism, we do not want it. It's not good for people. That's the main reason I'm going to share this story with you. I think you're going to enjoy it as much as I did. When you hear about how all this came about, all Vietnam veterans immediately know what happened. If you're a veteran, you probably saw it happen more than once. Myself, I didn't see it happen. I was too busy doing other things. Taking walks through the woods, driving up and down the highways, trying to miss ambushes, flying Cobra gunships, trying to shoot more rockets than anybody else and hit more targets. I did not have time to interact with the locals, but apparently some did, and the natural outcome happened. This story will tell us about one of those natural outcomes and how it ended up. In this case, I'm going to let you know up front, it has a happy ending. You're going to love it, I'm sure. So without any further ado, let's take a look at this heartwarming story that comes to us out of Boston, Massachusetts. Dateline, Boston. Nguyen T. Depp was on the front lines during the Vietnam War, but she was fighting a different kind of battle. She was trying to keep her family alive and prevent them from slipping into poverty. Her 4 younger sisters and ill father all depended on her to provide for them. At that time, she was in her early 20s and eager to find work. "I just wanted to do something to have some money to help my family," Depp said. Depp found a job at a U.S. Army base in Saigon, South Vietnam. There she worked as an office cleaner and was soon promoted to phone operator because she spoke English. It was at the base that Depp met a gregarious American Army sergeant named Joe O'Neill. Their relationship evolved into a romantic one, and Depp became pregnant with their child. After the U.S. signed the Paris Peace Accords in 1973, officials ordered all American troops out of Vietnam. Joe left the country when Depp was only 2 months pregnant. When his daughter, Phu Mai, turned 3, Depp started becoming more anxious about her child's safety. Here's where we talk about one of the evils of communism. She was hearing rumors that communist troops were targeting biracial children because they considered them to be children of traitors. I was very afraid of many people telling me that if I don't send my baby away, they will come in here and maybe she will be killed, Depp said. Depp made an excruciatingly painful decision. In April of 1975, She took her daughter to an orphanage and dropped her off. She still remembers that last cry from Mai. When I go to the door, she say, "Mama, don't leave me," Depp recalled. But I want to come in and bring her back home, but then I think if I do that, she will be killed later. Depp knew her daughter would be part of Operation Baby Lift, in which the U.S. airlifted thousands of children out of Vietnam for adoption. Beyond that, Depp didn't know where exactly Mao would end up. That certainly haunted her. Years later, when tensions calmed in Vietnam, Depp relentlessly searched for her daughter. She sent letters to adoption agencies and Joe to ask for their help. Many of her letters came back unopened. Desperate, Depp shared her story with Vietnamese media, hoping someone would be able to help her. It took some time, but someone finally did. His name is Vu Le, a 30-year-old Vietnamese expat who lives in Tampa, Florida. In his own words, Vu said this, "As a Vietnamese person, I understand how much pain she going through for those 40 years. Vu made it his mission to help Depp, so he began searching. There were nights when I could not sleep thinking about the story," he said. Through some clever online sleuthing and a lucky break on the generic matching site Ancestry.com, Vu's research led to one woman. Her name is Lee Small. You know how you're so excited, your hands shake, and you can't even type any of the proper words, Lee said. I was elated. It was this amazing surprise I had not expected. Lee, who is 48, lives in a quiet suburb near Portland, Maine, with her husband and 3 children. She first arrived to a home in Bridgewater, Massachusetts as a toddler named Mai. Lee was the name given to her by her adopted parents. My father was in the Coast Guard. My mother was an art teacher, and we had the typical normal life, Lee said. Soccer, basketball, vacations, regular school, and just kind of very fortunate to have everything we needed in life. Lee knew almost nothing about her birth parents. She didn't think it was possible to find them. But when Lee was 22, she went to see Miss Saigon, a musical about a Vietnamese woman and an American soldier who fall in love and have a son, only to be tragically separated. That was probably the first time I emotionally broke down about any part of my history with the war at all, Lee remembered. That was probably a big moment for me. Soon after that moment, relations between Vietnam and the U.S. normalized. Lee saw that as an opportunity to travel to Vietnam to try to find her biological mother, but she did not have any luck. It wasn't until almost 25 years later that Vu Le helped her make that connection. He helped find Lee's mother and half-sister. So for the first time ever, Lee called her biological mother, Nguyen T. Depp, on the phone. During the call, Depp asked her daughter a question that's been on her mind for more than 4 decades. Did you have a good life? Lee answered with this, I had a wonderful life. Depp's entire world changed in that moment. Because you know Depp spent all those years wondering what happened to her daughter. Did she get murdered by pirates out on the South China Sea? What happened to her? Did she make it to America? Did she find a good family? And finally, she had those questions answered. Depp said this, I told everyone in my family and said, oh, I found my daughter. And they said, when you see your daughter, you don't have to cry, okay? And I said, no, I'll never cry again. I'm very happy I found my daughter. Both mother and daughter met in person shortly after that first call when Lee and her family visited Vietnam in November. Lee remembers the anticipation before finally meeting her mother for the first time. It was nerve-wracking. I felt like I owed this woman my life, she said. They gave each other a hug the moment they saw each other, both very visibly shy. It's going to take some time to break through a language barrier and decades of distance. But it's a chapter they're looking forward to, one that's now possible thanks to the help of a kind stranger. And there you have it, the happy ending of a story about a Vietnam War love child. The mother finally discovered that it was worth all the pain and suffering that she had to go through to make sure that her daughter was not killed by bloodthirsty communists. Finally, she found out that her daughter did have a good life over in America. Looks like the mother finally had a good life in Vietnam. That's a wonderful story, and I just wanted you to know many times stories like this do have happy endings. I'd say this one here is very happy. I think Vu Lee, the expat that lives in Tampa that helped make all this happen, deserves a lot of credit and gratitude. I think he deserves so much, I am hereby issuing Vu Lee of Tampa, Florida, an official Vietnam Veteran News podcast salute for what you did for this family. That was a wonderful thing. I thank you, and I wish you the best over there in Tampa. But I also warn you, be careful if you drive around Tampa. The traffic seems to be terrible over there. Tampa's a nice place, but there seems to be just too many cars over there. That's why I like it here in Lake Placid, Florida. We only had 3 stoplights in the whole town. They have never heard of or experienced a traffic jam here in Lake Placid on the south side of Highlands County. Regardless, Vu Lee, thank you very much for the work that you did to help this family. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. This is Mac Payne closing out episode 1687 of the Vietnam Veteran News Podcast. Thank you so much for coming to listen to these stories, and you are cordially invited to come again soon and often to listen to more coming your way on this podcast, the Vietnam Veteran News.
How about that? Ain't that a mess?